Now, there have been weeks since Sheikh Hasina's visit to India. The Bangladeshi Prime Minister is now in China. She has met China's top leadership, including President Xi Jinping and the Premier Li Qiang. Her visit to China has spanned 4 days and has concluded with 27 MOUs that have been inked. In contrast, she spent 2 days in India, where 12 key agreements were signed between both the countries. Now, Sheikh Hasina's meeting with Xi Jinping has raised eyebrows, especially since the regional balance is in question. Business, trade and commerce have taken center stage during discussions with China, providing a generous credit for infrastructure projects. Ties have also been elevated to a strategic status. China has invested huge amounts of money in Bangladesh, particularly with regards to the Belt and Road Initiative. Projects like Paira Deep Seaport, Padma Bridge Rail Network Project, Karnafuli Tunnel Project are a testament to this growing relationship. Post this bilateral, we are left pondering if China is replicating its debt trap diplomacy with yet another neighbor of India, and how is this going to impact India's interest? Let's start our communication. Joining me on the telecast is Ambassador Suresh Goyal. My first question, Ambassador, is there space for countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka to have cordial ties with India, but at the same time work a structure to continue their investment opportunities, balance of trade, and other strategic ties with China?
Meghal, okay. In response to your question, my thoughts are coming out and basically I'm thinking aloud. If we were living in Sri Lanka, or if we were actually in position of Bangladesh, and we had to design the foreign policy for Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, how would we go about that? We are from the country of Chanakya, and Chanakya himself said that we should keep good relations with our next door neighbors to the neighbors, in case our relations with the neighbors are not comfortable. Mandala theory we are all aware about. So in this particular case, let us look at Sri Lanka. I'm not trying to justify, but basically when you want to really work on the foreign policy, you need to understand the behavior of the counterparts. And therefore we must understand where this behavior is coming from and what we need to do about it. And therefore, if you look at this, both Sri Lanka and Bangladesh, they would try to develop the kind of the matrices where they can balance forces from one with the other. I hope you understand from that point of view, and therefore, for them, China would be another possible countervailing parameter with which they can deal with in order. It has happened in the past, it is happening now. Now, as far as the structure is concerned, I think it's fairly clear, both from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, and the statements which have been made by their prime ministers and the president respectively over the last, not just 1 year, over the last several years, that they have a kind of trust in India now, which was never there before. Sheikh Hasina is close to Prime Minister Modi. Bangladesh is closer to India now than 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would say really. It's basically because they do realize that eventually in the region, they have to work with India for their own success, for their own economic growth. Sri Lanka has thanked India over and over again. Similarly, Bangladesh Sheikh Hasina came to India during the oath-taking ceremony of the Prime Minister and then for a visit. Therefore, I think we should keep a watch over what is happening between Bangladesh and China. But we should not try and say that because you are with us and therefore you cannot deal with China. That kind of a thing could boomerang. We cannot fly a kite when the string is very taut. The kite will fly away, get cut. So we have to give some kind of a slack, keep an eye, maintain the relationship, develop the growth, develop the ties with the country, particularly Bangladesh, because China is not the threat or anything. But China is using Bangladesh for connectivity into the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean. That is a problem. And we need to make sure that our relationship with Bangladesh are strong enough to not allow that kind of a Chinese influence through Bangladesh in the region. I think I've been rather not diplomatic enough, but only very cagey in terms of describing what I'm saying. But I'm sure my listeners will understand what I'm saying.
Okay. Okay, all right.
Megha, thank you.
All right. Let's get in Joyita Basu also into the discussion. And Joyita, why is there a perception created? Or is it just a perception and actually a reality that if you are aligned with India as the dominant power in the subcontinent versus when you have your balance of trade and association and bilateral ties with China, your growth rate increases exponentially? Be it when we talk about, the BRI projects that have been given quite the impetus in Bangladesh and in Sri Lanka. There have been billions of dollars that have been spent by China for construction of bridges and construction of rail and train networks, and there are power plants that are being built versus the kind of support that is given to Bangladesh, where infrastructure projects are being built, bridges are being built, but they are at a slower pace. And the magnitude of it is much lesser versus when funds start pouring into all these countries.
Well, first of all, when you are talking about BRI is not the epitome of success right now. BRI has flopped. BRI, rather the extension of BRI, that is the CPEC, it has flopped completely in Pakistan. BRI, if you are going to put the Sri Lanka, it has flopped there as well. So, I would not be talking about BRI. Yes, China has, but what has to be understood is that China has deep pockets. And China, at least even if we may say that China is spreading itself thin, the fact of the matter is that it has got pockets that are deep enough basically for Bangladesh to dip into and hope that something will come of it. And India does not, although India is doing a lot, and as Ambassador Suresh said that, Suresh Goyal said, India can, the relationship is good, it is of help to India that Hasina is in power, but at the same time two things will have to be looked at. Sheikh Hasina, Bangladesh is a sovereign country. Let us not forget there is a lot of anti-India sentiments that are there in Bangladesh. It is but for Sheikh Hasina, things may not have been okay between India and Bangladesh, so it is imperative for us to have her over there. Having said that, for Sheikh Hasina also it is important to show that she is not solely dependent on India, that there is a lot of, that she is close to China as well, that she is trying to strike a balance. It is for her domestic audience. That is something that has to be done, number one. And again, if you have noticed, what is very important is that China is also giving a lot of importance to Bangladesh, which it has not even given to maybe a country like Pakistan. The kind of reception that Sheikh Hasina has got in China, that is primarily because, not just because Bangladesh is a rising economy, but because of the India factor, because India is very close to Bangladesh, but China is trying to counter India over there. But I agree, we are not in a position to dictate terms to a sovereign country. Whether that country trips and falls, we can warn that country, we can tell them in private that, listen, you cannot, you are building business, you are building bridges with China, whatever you are doing, that should not be at the cost of our strategic interests. But beyond that, we cannot go, we cannot arm twist her into falling in line and say, you follow this line and follow that line, because it's very, sensitive. We do not want those others to come in. So, in a way, if you look at it, it is good that both India and China, they are placing their bets on Sheikh Hasina and not that BNP, that other, which is an Islamist, radical supported Jamaat-e-Islami kind of, so that is one saving grace. But yes, we have to wait and watch how it, and you have to make it clear to Bangladesh that no strategic issues will happen so that they should not be encroaching on our strategic areas. Simple as that.
Okay. Gautam Mukherjee, now, interestingly, these are two nations that need to be studied in contrast with each other. Sri Lanka, that is still reeling under the debt crisis that was created after the complete fallout of the government over there, versus Bangladesh, which has been growing leaps and bounds under Sheikh Hasina as the Prime Minister. Therefore, the power of leverage to a certain extent lies with Sheikh Hasina, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister. But when we talk about the number of groupings and blocks that have been created, and Bangladesh is for some reason or the other not part of them, whether it is BRICS or you talk about the SCO, we talk about RCEP, where there has been willingness that has been shown by Bangladesh to be part of RCEP. I don't know if it is going to be beneficial to Bangladesh as an economy and to allow for balance of trade, or in fact earning more revenues through it. But it is on the table, and there are proponents who would like the Bangladeshi Prime Minister to strike a deal to be part of RCEP. How does this play out in the larger scheme of things?
Well, I think Bangladesh is following a more bilateral approach, and it is doing well with India, it is doing well with China. And insofar as it goes, in almost all the countries in our littoral, this is the case. They are all, Nepal is with China and to an extent with India. Pakistan is wholesale China. Bangladesh is half and half. Sri Lanka has been stung, but it is also not just a function of Chinese debt trap diplomacy. It is also some of their own domestic decisions that and circumstance, as in COVID, which collapsed the tourist market, that led them to that pass. Now they are mending bridges with India. They had tilted too far towards China under the Rajapakshas. Sheikh Hasina is approaching her 80s. So we must understand, and she does not seem to have a designated successor. She's under a lot of pressure from the West to, basically hold more free and fair elections, stop cracking down on the Islamic opposition. So how long this will last is anybody's guess. For the moment, Sheikh Hasina, who's about 78, has gone into her fourth or fifth consecutive term, is doing well with India and China. Now, India supplies a lot of raw material and support for the Bangladeshi economy, the Bangladeshi export economy in particular. Now, possibly she could get this from China, but we are right next door. And the garment trade, for example, is highly dependent on supplies from India. What will happen beyond Sheikh Hasina is the question. These things are in a dynamic mode. For the moment, she has chosen to balance her bilateral equation with India and China. In fact, 2 days to India and 4 days to China tells its own story as well. There is much greater investment of the Chinese in Bangladesh as we stand. So it is India, on the other hand, has no choice. India has no choice but to try and build bridges with Bangladesh for strategic reasons, including our access to the Northeast and our Act East policy. So we're doing well for the moment.
Okay.
The Chinese would like to come in and clear the pitch for us. What's new?
Okay, so then, Sumit, talking about, India leveraging its position to a limited extent to build these close ties with Bangladesh versus now the entry of China and the influence that at this point of time it holds on Bangladesh is quite apparent. So when we talk about in the largest scheme of things, we talk about the leader of the global South, it is more and more, I don't know on the global front how things pan out, but it still is, at least in the regional sphere, in the ASEAN nations, barring a couple of countries in the subcontinent itself, it is China that is growing in its stature as a leader of the pack.
You see, Meghaji, thank you very much for having me on your show. And first of all, thanks for bringing up this issue because it's a very important issue. And, I concur with all my panelists. I would not talk what they've already spoken. I want to take the conversation to the next point. With the pretext that our relations with Bangladesh have improved, they are best under Prime Minister Modi, but there are 8 or 10 red flags based on substantial evidence. And I've also done 2 shows on YouTube where I've presented all this evidence. I'm going to talk to you on these issues. First important issue is that, look, Bangladesh is posing up to China. We like it, we do not like it. That's the first point. We have to admit it. Where does Bangladesh buy all the arms from? China. Has Bangladesh asked China for $5 billion debt from Chinese banks, which is that super interest? Yes, they have asked. So economy is not doing very well. Point number 2. Where is the China's missile defense hub coming up? Bangladesh. The deal is signed in 2022. मैं आपको बता रहा हूँ. Point number 3. Why Bangladesh is not asking us for aid and all? We can give them all the aid. We can help them do all the things. Why are they running to China? Because China has corrupted the innermost cadre of Sheikh Hasina. China as a country corrupts the leaders. I'm not talking of Sheikh Hasina, but the cadre which is very close to, they're all on Chinese payroll. Who is the person who is getting maximum contracts as a political advisor to Sheikh Hasina? Isn't that man on ISI's payrolls? Yes. Now let me take you to Raisena. Rajshahi. I've done a detailed program on this. In Rajshahi, there's a port coming up on River Ganga, which is just opposite our side. And who's the man who's running the port? Mayor of Rajshahi. What is the mayor of Rajshahi? His name is Khairuzzaman Litton. And who's Khairuzzaman Litton? Khairuzzaman Litton is the kingpin of the mafia, wherein Bangladeshi, these are BNP guys, Jamatis, along with Pakistani politicians and Pakistanis doing in UK are doing trade-based money laundering. This port will be used for anti-India activities. And I've raised several flags on this. This is covered by Bangladesh media. I don't know how Sheikh Hasina doesn't see it. This is just across the river. I mean, there's no way you can do about that. The 5 trials are done. Very soon, if this port goes to Litton, there will be problem for India. Let me take you recently to Dhaka. There are our Dalit brothers, our Harijan brothers who had taken their 400 years back, right? And unfortunately, they're still Dalits and Harijans. Nothing has been done of them because they're Hindus. Now, there are around 5,000 people, 400, 500 families, 5,000 people. Now, they live in a place in Dhaka, and there is this South Dhaka Municipal Corporation. And who is the mayor? Mayor ka naam hai Fazlu Noor Taposh. He is the mayor. I'm giving you the names so that you can substantiate it. 7 days back, they were sent a notice that this is illegal, leave this premises. Then there is one Jamati councillor, name is Muhammad Azwal Hussain. It is Councillor Ward 33. You know what is the offer to them? Convert to Islam, otherwise go and perish with your baggage wherever you want to go. They are all Hindus. They have been writing hue and cry, they have been writing everywhere. And you know what does this councillor tell them? They are saying, bhai, hum kahan jayenge? Well, I'll put you in a zoo. People will pay a ticket and see how the Hindus are kept in Bangladesh. This is happening in Dhaka. And they are making some kind of a kitchen bazaar there. I'm giving you all the details. Now, who is putting money here? Who is the land going to be given? 55 acres of land, 55 acres of land. It will be given to China. So if you look at this port in Rajshahi, if you look at this, what is happening to Harijan and Dalit brothers, if you look at this project, if you look at the missiles, if you look at technology, if you look at the investments coming in China, if you look at the political advisor of Sheikh Hasina, and if you look at 2 days visit here and 4 days visit here, there's a lot which is happening in Rajshahi. You know why? Because Rajshahi was a part of Malda Murshidabad, which was taken into Bangladesh. They went to Pakistan. The Muslims from here went to Pakistan. But unfortunately, it became Bangladesh. They have a double whammy with us. First, they hate India. Now India made it Bangladesh. They hate us more. Malda Murshidabad is, the opposite districts. That is Rajshahi. That trouble is brewing. And let's not forget the BJP MP Soumitra Khan has told on the House of Parliament this plan of Greater Bangladesh, wherein they want to have 5 districts of West Bengal merged in and make into a Greater Bangladesh. So do you think Sheikh Hasina doesn't know it? Do you think Bangladesh intelligence doesn't know it? And last point, Meghaji, you can Google and find it right now. She is on record saying, do not talk too much about Bangladesh and all. Hindus in Bangladesh will get into trouble. This is an official media coverage on that. Now, if you add all the things together, don't you think there are enough red flags for us to realize? Don't you think there are red flags for us to be concerned
all
about?
right. Thank you, Sumit, for giving us all those facts and statistics that puts things in perspective as well. And Ambassador Goyal, quickly, I like to include all the other panelists as well in the last 5-6 minutes that are left with me. How do you view what Sumit is at this point of time saying? Yes, it is right that the Hindus are under attack over there. The temples are being desecrated over there. Our religious scriptures have been desecrated. They have been burnt and they have been destroyed. The Hindu population is reducing exponentially, at an alarming rate as well. And now with what Sumit has mentioned, can this be a red flag and how should India tackle it?
All I would say here, with a bit of a light-hearted remark, and I hope Sumit doesn't mind it, that I think he's in the wrong place. He should be in the CAPSEC sharing all this information with the people there, and I'm sure they will listen to all this with great interest. And I'm sure we have a very capable man as the NSA who will know what to do about all the information that Sumit has shared just now on a public telecast like this. I'm sure he will do something about this. And as far as Bangladesh is concerned, look, I'm not going to go into all these kind of names and everything. There are people in every country who have their own designs, and allegations are leveled against people here in India also. Not China, China also, but also their own personal agendas, which basically come into a limelight or come to the forefront in terms of all kinds of projects. I'm not saying no or yes, but all these allegations are not new to me. They happen. My point simply is this. Given all these things which are happening around us, and we know that China is trying to increase their influence in Bangladesh, and there are people in Bangladesh who probably are on the payrolls. I've lived in the countries which have realized eventually the kind of price they're having to pay because they fell prey to what China was doing. Therefore, given the kind of a situation it is, we need to look at what our options are. So our options are either we said, all right, we will go into Bangladesh just like once in 1970 once again. Will that work? No, absolutely not. This is not the condition under which we can really think of those kind of things. Do we try and basically increase our own leverages in Bangladesh? I think yes. How do we increase those leverages? There are people, Sheikh Hasina is one person who is known to really be with India, who is really known to favor India, given the kind of situation that prevails in Bangladesh. And she knows about the attacks against Hindus, and she has tried to control all those things. Now, develop our leverages, and if we can develop those leverages by participating more in Bangladeshi economy, both covert, overt, personal, national, I think we need to work our leverages.
Okay.
That's the only way out, whether it is Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Maldives, Nepal, Bhutan. It will not do for us to say that you are working with China and therefore we can't do anything with you.
No, absolutely. I think it should work both ways, because when India has bilateral ties and does trade with Russia, and we would get offended if US or United Kingdom or any other country comes out and says that it is concerned that India is getting closer with Sri Lanka, and the same has been spoken about and highlighted by S. Jaishankar, our Foreign Affairs Minister. Then it's no point at this point of time using a reverse policy for countries in our subcontinent, simply because we are an economy which is doing much better and it's much bigger than the smaller nations that surround us. Joyita, also talking about the recent elections that are taking place in Bangladesh, where the United States of America had sanctioned a number of the Bangladeshi officials from the side of Sheikh Hasina, who were the Sheikh Hasina's officials, to say, accusing Bangladesh of not having fair and free elections, to which India was silent in its commentary. in coming out and supporting Sheikh Hasina or the Bangladesh government at that point of time, and today of course it continues. Meanwhile, in contrast, it was China who went about saying and supporting Sheikh Hasina that listen, we are going to fight against the external interferences that are then hampering the smooth process of election taking place in Bangladesh, basically siding with Sheikh Hasina and going about pulling up United States of America, saying that you're unnecessarily interfering in the internal matter of Bangladesh.
Well, if you're looking at China saying all these things, China has said all these things to score its own petty, brownie points, basically, and this is rhetoric that it has been indulging in. Suddenly it is supporting India, Mr. Modi meeting Vladimir Putin and all. So basically for China it is about, it is against the US. So, but for India, you see, to come out openly and support is politically suicidal. I mean, it is going to be politically suicidal for Sheikh Hasina. As it is, they have tried to start an India out movement, boycott India, boycott Indian products. This has been going on in Bangladesh. Let's not forget that Bangladesh is getting increasingly radicalized, it is getting increasingly Islamized. And you know, Bangladesh is where we are witnessing riots and all. So this is a country we have to handle very gently. We have to be very, very careful when we are handling this country. We cannot afford to be seen, you know, to be coming out and supporting Hasina in public, primarily because it is going to play in the hands of the Qattar Islamists. Let's not forget that Hasina herself has allowed these Islamists to grow to a large extent, but she has also tried to make certain course corrections, but at the same time some of her advisors are really actual Islamists. So do we want another Pakistan on our border? I don't think so. So you see, for that it is important, because out of, I would say, 20 bad choices, Hasina is the least worst choice. I think that is what our policy about Bangladesh has to be, that
Okay.
she is bad, but she is not the worst.
Okay, all right. So that obviously confounds India's problems, particularly in the subcontinent, where the outreach of the Chinese has now, tempted Bangladesh. It has already taken over Sri Lanka, the debt crisis that is clearly visible and known to the world, and there you have it. The BRI that is flourishing in all these countries. On the other hand, we have been raising our voice over CPEC that is being built in Pakistan. But at the same time, there is no stopping for China to create the BRI through these countries and thereby further surround India, which is going to be the detriment of the country in its security. And of course, the fight that we have been fighting, whether it is the line of actual control, whether it is the LOC, and now when you see these economic overtures, outreach programs that both these countries are grabbing with both their hands, and what is going to be the eventuality of it, well, it remains to be seen.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.